Evening, folks. I've just finished listening to Everywhere at the End of Time by The Caretaker. All 6.5 hours of it. Let's take a deep dive. All right, we are 2 hours 36 minutes in, and there's a lot of this type of stuff going on. So I'm having my lunch now. Get another hour or so in. We are 3 hours 38 minutes in. It's all gone quite strange. We are at 4 hours 23 minutes. It's gone very kind of sort of ambient now, I would say. Very, very pleasant to sort of have on in the background as I'm just working around some background research for this video. Nice. Just hit 5.5 hours. I've come outside to get a bit of a break, so I'm just listening on my headphones. So there's an hour left basically now. So full run time, 6.5 hours, and we're into the last hour. Just in the last 8 minutes, it's all gone very kind of ambient with a sort of darker tone, but no more fiddling now. I'm just going to listen to the last of the track run out. So in your YouTube list of recommendations, if you've seen this icon, you might think, oh, what is that? And then you maybe hovered over it and seen it's a 6.5 hour long video. But this is likely to be Everywhere at the End of Time. So what is that? Who is the Caretaker? So the Caretaker is basically a sort of a pen name or a moniker or a pseudonym of James Leyland Kirby. You can go and search for him on Wikipedia. And there's a very good biography of him by Heather Fares. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. I think on All Music, so you can go and read her biog, which is good. Like, So I've got my notes here, so I don't want to miss anything out. Everywhere at the End of Time is a series of 6 albums from James Leyland Kirby, written as The Caretaker, totaling 6.5 hours of music. James Leyland Kirby, originally from Stockport in the UK, he started his musical career as a DJing in Manchester, and then before starting to make his own electronic music, and he sort of put music out under a number of different sort of pseudonyms and names, as you know, as many of us have. I remember years ago going out as Mr. Moon. That's really into the archives. Anyway, so the Caretaker was a pseudonym he adopted to produce music based on essentially processed jazz records from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and to quote Wikipedia, exploring memory and the gradual deterioration of it, nostalgia and melancholia. And according to Wikipedia, his style was inspired by the ballroom scene from Kubrick's The Shining. And I haven't seen The Shining for a long time, but I sort of did a little YouTube search, and indeed, you I think you'll know the scene. I mean, when I say the ballroom scene, but go and look on YouTube. Someone has sort of cut that scene out and posted it. So before releasing Everywhere at the End of Time, James Kirby had released 9 albums under the moniker The Caretaker. Everywhere at the End of Time, it's a series of 6 albums released between 2016 2019 as a total running time 6.5 hours, or at least that's sort of the mix I've just listened to on YouTube. So at the same time, over that 6.5 hours, you could listen to all of Bach's Brandenburg concertos almost 4 times. Over the 6 albums, the music gradually deteriorates from sort of simply sampled lo-fi jazz records, as you might say, to sort of chaotic and sometimes cacophonous noise at the end. And the last album, and they're all titled these sort of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. the last album, Stage 6, is the most deteriorated of the music. The music's available on Bandcamp. I'll put links to all this in the description, and on Bandcamp it's there as kind of 50 separate tracks. So I heard of this album from a video by Solar Sands, and he goes into a lot more detail about the artwork that accompanies these albums. So this guy, and he's a guy, has a super interesting channel, so do go and look at his channel. Okay, so what is going on with this album, these series of albums, 6.5 hours of this gradually deteriorating sort of sample and slow ballroom music? And if you're thinking, is this like Amon Tobin, where he's sort of taking his source material as this ballroom and he's cutting it up and he's rearranging it and presenting it as something completely new, and then that's one idea, then he moves on to a different idea? It isn't that. It is and it seems to be the entire sort of musical career output of the Caretaker is this one singular idea of this kind of 1930s 40s ballroom that's just sort of essentially degraded, mashed up, and just sort of presented for us. And I think the last 2 hours of this particular, Everywhere at the End of Time is that taken to its sort of crazy extreme. So I've been looking. There's a really nice review of it on Resident Advisor, and I'll put the link to all these in the description. So I've just been sort of like reading that review. So it appears like this album essentially is charting, or is an allegory of the Caretaker's descent into Alzheimer's disease, which is pretty grim. Like, in this of albums, Kirby is essentially killing off the Caretaker persona through a descent into, I'll say not madness, but into a descent into sort of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And then if we look back into sort of Kirby's sort of previous albums in terms of him writing as a Caretaker, I know he's addressed kind of Alzheimer's in previous work, and the fact that in this and the relationship of music therapy has been a helpful therapy for those people suffering with dementia, which is like sort of super interesting. Okay, so I'm just looking at his Bandcamp page, and if we start in kind of the first album of this set, you get track titles like It's Just a Burning Memory, We Don't Have Many Days, Late Afternoon Drifting, Childish Fresh Eyes. And as we progress kind of mid-stage, Glimpses of Hope in Trying Times, Surrendering to Despair, Denial, Unraveling. I mean, this is it's getting pretty grim. Track 32, Drifting Time Misplaced, followed by Internal Bewildered World. And maybe these track titles in conjunction with the actual tracks themselves are trying to portray this kind of this loss of memory and this sort of descent into the later stages of Alzheimer's disease. And then when we're really at the sort of let's look at the Stage 6, which is the final album. Sudden time regression into isolation, a confusion so thick you forgetting, a brutal bliss beyond this empty defeat, long decline is over, places in the world fades away. Yeah, so pretty sort of brutal. But then if you listen to this, you'll sort of get the idea of what Kirby's trying to portray here. Now I've seen other people sort of talk about this and write about this and sort of describe it as being pretty bleak and pretty depressing. I mean don't get me wrong, the disease is awful, right? Dementia, Alzheimer's, any neurodegenerative disease, just totally horrible. And maybe that's what's going on here over these 6 hours. Kirby's going, it's horrible, isn't it? Yeah, and it's not. It's not a 5-minute song, or it's not even one album. It's like it's 6.5 hours going. This progression of this disease, it's horrible, and it's unfolding throughout these albums. Super interesting, and like the fact the whole the size of the project and the sort of the singularity of the idea just progressing through, you know, these sort of 6.5 hours, just really kind of hammers that kind of message home in a way that, yeah, you know, other works, you know, are not that kind of extreme, I suppose. Yeah, interesting stuff. So I've been online to look at some statistics for dementia. So Alzheimer's Research UK has a really nice statistics hub, I think they're calling it. Nice site, depressing statistics. I mean, they've got a figure that shows that it's the most common cause of death in the UK. I didn't know that. It's like it's just above heart disease. And then cardiovascular is below that. Didn't know that. It also has a nice sort of UK map showing hotspots, which is again pretty grim sort of reading. For some reason, the West Midlands, where I originally come from, has its own little zoom out part of the map. Crikey. And, you know, obviously at the moment we're sort of living through a pandemic, but the more sort of sites I looked at, it appears that sort of dementia and, you know, neurodegenerative diseases are increasing in their prevalence. And there's a particularly nice figure again from this Alzheimer's Research UK site, just yeah, sort of showing in a simple diagram how the cases of dementia are going to increase. I mean, you know, that's interesting, is it? So why is that? You know, is it just that we're surviving other diseases that would otherwise kill us, so therefore we're surviving for longer, and therefore there's a greater number of the population that's old that will get dementia? I mean, you have to die of something, right? if you don't die of cancer or heart disease or lung cancer, you'll maybe, you know, you will get something. Grim thoughts. So that's kind of interesting, that, you know, what necessarily, you know, is there something about our environment that means you know, dementia is going to be more common? I don't know. I've not looked that far into the literature. There may be some interesting answers out there. So, is it all depressing? Well, doing the research for this video, I somewhere read about music therapy and its role in sort of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. So I did a quick search on a Google Scholar, Alzheimer's disease music therapy, and, you know, you can repeat this search, and there are boatloads of articles. So this is obviously a thing. I mean, lots and lots of super interesting articles here, and so this is Google Scholar. So these are peer-reviewed articles, right? So these are science, you know, these are scientific experiments, or at least, you know, one would hope scientifically rigorous trials. Use of songwriting. This is super interesting, and, you know, and yeah, you know, we know that music therapy is a thing, right? But I am super surprised at sort of it's the number of papers here that are sort of go into sort of the use of music therapy in Alzheimer's disease. Super interesting. So yeah, going all the way back to 1991. And there's probably earlier articles if I went looking. That's an interesting idea. When did music therapy take off? You could probably trace it back to the Victorian era. Don't know. That's that's one for another video. But does it work? Well, I'm going to make a cup of tea and then I'm going to try and answer that question. Okay, I have found 2 papers from this year, from 2020, that are published in open access journals, which means, you know, I can see them. Basically anyone can see them if they want. We have this one article here, a meta-analysis of the effect of music therapy on Alzheimer's disease. And meta-analysis essentially just means we've looked at a lot of papers in this area, and we've brought them all together and we've looked at the overall effect essentially. And so there's that one, and this is coming out of China, so this is the, sort of a Chinese study. And I found this other paper as well, again from 2020. This is coming from a number of authors in Spain, and again they're also doing a meta-analysis, and again this is from 2020. And I'll put my citations in the description. Let's start. No, I don't do that. Let's start with the Chinese paper. And what we can do is this is their abstract, but we can jump right ahead to the conclusion. I'll just read the conclusion. The effect of music therapy on cognitive function and ADL. ADL is activities of daily living. That's what ADL is. And then they're using AD as a short form for Alzheimer's disease. So the effect of music therapy on cognitive function and ADL in patients with Alzheimer's disease is not significant. Oh dear. Music therapy for Alzheimer's disease patients also needs further research involving a multi-center study and larger sample size and various music models. So I've looked into this paper a little bit, but we're just looking here. I mean, we're not cherry picking, but we for the sake of length of this video, we're just going straight into the conclusions here. So they do say that although they've looked at the stats and it's not significant, they acknowledge that there's more work to be done in this area. Now, if you go to the Spanish group, their conclusions are a bit different. So let's jump to their conclusion. Based on our results, music could be a powerful treatment strategy. However, it is necessary to develop critical trials aimed at design standardized protocols. Sounds good. Depending on the nature or stage of dementia. Right, okay, so different stages, different diseases might have different treatments. That kind of makes sense. So they can be applied together with current cognitive, behavioural and pharmacological therapies. So, right, you could use music therapy in a combination with sort of, drugs, pharmaceuticals, right? So there we go. So it seems like, and I think I looked more at the Chinese paper. There's definitely studies that were like that they looked at that were sort of music therapy has a positive effect, and then ones that music therapy didn't really have a positive effect. But they're certainly saying that more research needed in this area, and this is the case with science. It's rarely a sort of black and white answer, and it's almost always certainly we don't really know enough. We need to know more. Okay, let's wrap this up. This is getting a bit of a long video. So we've gone from sort of everywhere at the end of time, this kind of epic 6.5 hour allegory of a descent into Alzheimer of this persona of James Kirby, the caretaker, through his work, and then had a look at kind of music therapy, Alzheimer's, dementia. All sort of really, really interesting, really great. Is it good music? That's not for me to say. Go and listen for yourself. It's on Bandcamp. You can listen to it. You can buy it. It's on YouTube, obviously. Listen for yourself. Make your own judgment. That's not my job to critique. I think it's it's. I'm glad I invested the time listening to it. That's all I can say. All right. Any questions? Downstairs. Take care, everyone.